live. Morning. Wednesday, just checking in that today is Wednesday. This morning I said, I start a new job tomorrow, and then I was like, oh no, that's today. So good, today's Wednesday. Thanks for joining. If you're not familiar with this format, it's a follow along practice, and it's really a structure for you to do what you want within, just as I will be setting a good example by doing exactly what I want. So that feels and looks very different from one body to another, so don't feel at all like you need to do what I'm doing. I'll start as usual with very, very, very gentle stuff. Lots of it is Feldenkrais based and bastardized, to sort of give a very functional, soft way in to mobilizing and differentiating and integrating different parts of the body and the self. And then I tend to kind of develop from that into something a bit more muscular, but yeah, push it where you want to, rest when you want to, just do what feels good. I know that for some people this is the only movement that they will do in the day. For me that's often the case, and therefore maybe you want maybe you want something different out of it. Other people will go and do their own training after this, or do a HIIT class, or do a Pilates class, or go for a run, or maybe this is the only thing you do all week, or maybe this is your cool down and you've already been training all morning, or it's different for everybody. So really treat it as an invitation to move through some stuff together. I've got a lot of knowledge to share in terms of ways of approaching things and anatomical observations, but beyond that, you know your body best, so just do what feels good. Try to resist pushing and correcting and that kind of thing, as in, like, try to resist pushing into pain. So even if you want to work harder, do that within this framework of trying to find efficient ways of doing things without strain. Anyway, good. So stepping into... is the camera doing this funny thing where it like... Oh no, the camera's doing this autofocus. Never mind. So I'm going to start lying down. I'm going to move into first person, speaking in the first person, so that you can hear little examples of how my awareness is moving, and that can act as a guide for how you could allow your awareness, attention to shift through the body as we move. Hooray! I need to take my socks off in this nice weather. Even though I really like my stripy t-shirt combination. So I start lying down. I just have a little stretch and a little yawn. Starting gently. Stretching is so good. Funny that there are those kind of two kinds of stretching out there. There's like stretching as in like yawning stretching, like that kind of stretching. And then there's stretching like you do in gymnastics or something, where you push into something that's not, well, even if you find it pleasurable, it's a very different kind of pleasure, that's for sure. Something you're making happen rather than something that's happening to you. This kind of stretch is like allowing something to happen to you. I'm just going to keep going with it, just to explore this kind of like, just responding to what I notice in my own body. Rolling and stretching a bit. I feel a little tightness in my shoulders. I just give my shoulders a rub, because I got a little tightness there. I'm just going to give my body a little rub. Up and down my arms. Waking up the skin around the arm, forearm, armpit, breasts, ribs, belly on one side, and the shoulder, and then the other side, the lower arm, the hand, the wrist, upper arm, little shoulder massage. And the chest, the pectorals, kind of grabbing under the armpit, and down the ribs, down to the belly, chest, throat, around the back of my neck, picking up my head so that I can just gently slide and rub over the skin in the back of the neck and up the back of the skull. Grabbing and pulling the hair a little bit to kind of wake up the scalp. Tugging of the skin of the head and rubbing the face. A little soft, firm but soft circles of the flesh on the face. The jaw. Moving the ears. And then having another stretch, rolling and stretching. Then, now I'm ready to lie down. And so I come to relative stillness, lying with my arms and legs long. Just observing my own alignment. I'm going to go from the top of my head in a little scan. And notice which point of the back of my head is making contact with the ground. That helps me realize that I'm looking slightly down. I realise my chin is a bit tucked. I'm looking slightly down towards my nose and towards my feet. I sense the back of the body, back of the skull coming away from the ground at the base of the neck, following the neck down to my shoulders, just comparing each side of the shoulder girdle, how the shoulder blades are in contact with the ground. I sense a difference between my right and left sides. I'm not trying to correct anything, I'm just noticing differences. There'll always be some difference, it's okay. So I feel a greater contact with my right shoulder blade. I feel my left shoulder blade is slightly lifted away from the ground. So I feel my sort of outer edge of my outer tip of my right shoulder is slightly closer to the ground. Outer tip of my left shoulder is slightly lifted away from the ground and feels like it's a little bit, so as if my shoulder girdle is twisted a bit to the right, which I think it is. And then I'm taking my attention down from my shoulders down my arms, just to notice what effect does that have on my arms. And notice that my right arm is in a slightly greater amount of contact with the ground. My left arm is slightly less contact. I feel more of a gap underneath my left wrist than my right. But I notice that my hands are in quite a similar contact with the ground. Similar, for me it's the outer edge, the little finger edge of my hand in contact with the ground on both sides. And I notice how long, how bent or straight my elbows are on each side. Whether my arm is long or curved. I come back up to the shoulders, I take my attention to the back of the shoulders again, the back of the ribs. And I just make my attention a bit more three-dimensional so that I can notice my chest as well. The shape of the chest on each side, right under the collarbones. Down through the front of the ribs, noticing how my ribs sit and how my ribs move with my breath. Down through the back of the body, where I come away from the ground and my mid-back. And my lower back, is comparing the shape of the arch under my lower back on either side. Comparing that to my experience of the volume of my ribs in the front and the volume of my belly in the front. Comparing left and right. Learning more about my alignment this morning just by comparing left and right and front and back. And then down to my pelvis. Where am I pressing into the ground? Where do I feel the ground pressing into me? Do I feel the same on both sides of the pelvis? I feel personally a bit more weight again over to the right, so I'm slightly rolling to the right this morning. My intention is just to lie flat, but that's not what's happening, so I just acknowledge that. I take my attention down my legs, noticing the contact in the back of the legs against the ground. Noticing the front of the pelvis. The low belly disappears into the pubic bone, making the front of the pelvis. Noticing my sensation in each hip toward the side of the pelvis. Down into the thighs at the front, the volume of my thighs. Oh, the volume of my thighs. Actually, it's quite different. I feel often a big difference between my right and left. Noticing the size, the length of the upper leg, and then the knee. What's the gap like underneath each knee? What's the bend of each knee like? Is one leg a little straighter than the other? Down to my lower leg. Trying to understand my body in space. How is my body organized in space? Using the contact of the lower leg with the ground. Getting a sense of the length and direction of the lower leg on either side. And the ankle. And the heel. How's the heel in touch, or the side of the foot? Which bit of the foot is in contact with the ground? Comparing either side. Noticing the direction that my toes are pointing and allowing that to also let me know about the differences between the left and right. And then expanding out my awareness again to take in the whole body, the whole self. Any thoughts, any feelings? Just going to the right. So at the moment I'm really lopsided. I'm rolling to the right. I'm not going to the left at all, because that's just not what's happening with ease right now, so that's okay. I just pause. And I'm going to start to bend my knees, but I'm doing it in a really particular way. So I'm just thinking about micro bending my knees in the direction that they're already pointing, and then releasing again. I just do that a few times. I micro bend my knees. They weren't straight to start with, to be honest, but they were long. So it's not that I'm pushing them straight and then bending them, but from wherever they're starting, with my legs long and on the ground, I do a tiny bend in the knee and then I release. Tiny bend, both knees at once, and then I release. And with the same amount of effort on both sides, the same intention, I notice that one knee bends a little easier than the other. And I listen to the bending of the knee and I feel, how does the hip relate to that? So as my knee bends in the direction that it's already pointing, just a micro bend, and then releases, then that affects a little fold in the hip as well, a small amount of flexion in the hip for my knee to bend. And I just see which side is a little more available, which side is more available to bending in the knee and folding in the hip. And then I make that movement bigger, so I'm just dragging both heels up towards my pelvis with my knees turning out. So I lengthen my legs away and I push my heels away. And I do that again, very softly, very slowly. I micro bend my knees. And then I drag my heels up towards my pelvis with my knees turned out, and then I push my heels away again. And I've got my favourite blanket underneath me, so that's easy for me to slide my feet. And I just do that a few times. I want to shuffle a bit on the ground to make myself more comfortable in my lower back. I keep going. Gets a little bit easier for me after I've made that little shift in my back. I keep breathing and trying to relax everything as much as possible. So of course there is some muscular effort to bring my knees up. But I'm trying to do it with as little effort as possible. And I'm noticing the line that my heels trace on the ground. I just take a rest for a moment. So I come back to that. Micro bend my knees, my heels are on the ground, my knees are turning out. My knees bend in the direction that they're already pointing, and I draw my heels up towards my pelvis. I'm going to start to try and sense my sitting bones. And I have an idea, like a puppet with a string going through its legs. I don't know if you know, now I'm talking as a teacher again. Oops. Anyway, but when you pull on a string, there's a little puppet, and when you pull on a string, its legs and arms go ring. So I'm doing that again. Ring. Not with the arms. In fact, it's quite fun to do it with the arms, so I just do it with the arms a few times, make it easier. I'm just pulling my heels up, pulling my elbows up and down again, like somebody's pulling on the string between my legs. Ring. Ring. I just rest for a moment. I'm going to roll to my side. I want to get a better impression of my sitting bones. So I come up to sitting. And I come to sitting in any position that is more or less symmetrical. I've got my knees bent because, for me, I can even hold on to the back of my legs actually. What I'm trying to do is feel my sitting bones on the ground. So I have my heels on the ground and my feet on the ground still. My knees are bent. And I just roll my pelvis. Like actually I could use my hands on the floor as well to take a bit of weight, so then it becomes easier to roll my pelvis. I'm just trying to get a sense. I can do anything I want. I can roll the pelvis, or I can lean forwards and backwards. I want to just feel the bony structure at the base of my pelvis. I want to try and feel the lowest point of the pelvis, which is my sitting bones. How can I feel them? So for me, I can sit with my legs long. That's a nice place to feel it. Here I get a good feeling of the bony structure. I'm trying to really just press down through the base of my pelvis, the sitting bones, so that I'm really just telling my brain, hey brain, remember your sitting bones? Hello me, these are your sitting bones. These are my sitting bones. There they are. Feeling the bony bit at the base of my pelvis. There we go. And everybody's sitting bones are different. So I roll forwards and backwards on them a little bit. And once I've felt them, I can lift one and then the other, like I'm walking with my pelvis. I could actually walk, it's quite nice. I walk with my pelvis forwards and backwards. And that's again just a nice reinforcing of my sitting bones. And then I even them up. I try and spread them out a bit, open my bum, spread out my sitting bones. I can do that with my hands, pulling. And I just sit here for a moment, right up on my sitting bones. I try to release in my hips now, so I'm not forcing my legs to be straight. I'm not forcing myself to sit in any particular position. I'm certainly not pulling my belly in, as you can see on camera. I'm just sitting, trying to release any tension that I don't need, and just accept what my posture is right now, according to my comfort. So, finding my sitting bones, and once I'm stacked up on my sitting bones, I'm not necessarily straight. I'm certainly not straight, personally speaking. But I'm prioritizing feeling the sitting bones on the ground, and then being comfy. And letting go of tension. Have a little look around. And as I look around, I let my head, as if I have to let my head connect to my neck. My head definitely just does connect to my neck. And I don't have to let my neck connect to the rest of my spine and my ribs, because it definitely just does. So I'm just noticing, I'm not inhibiting movement. I'm just noticing the movement so that as I look around, my ribs can move softly, my spine can move softly, and my eyes are guiding my movement, and I'm keeping my attention in my sitting bones, and I can feel my sitting bones moving a little just as the weight shifts. So I look down towards my belly, up towards the ceiling. I let my knees move according to what's comfortable. Good, so those are my sitting bones. I lie down again and take a rest. And notice how I'm lying now. It's pretty different. Scanning through the body again, from the crown of the head down. Checking in with the left and the right, the front and the back. And I'm going to come back to the same action of micro-bending, just micro-bending my knees to start with. See how that feels. Ooh, that's different now that I've moved around on my sitting bones a bit. So I feel my left knee is more available to bend than it was before. Still not quite like my right actually, but that's okay. So now I'm going to continue to draw my sitting bones up, my heels up towards my sitting bones with my knees bending out, and then push my heels away. And as I do it, I'm really visualizing the line that my heels draw on the floor. I'm trying to visualize where my sitting bones are. I'm trying to visualize and sense, feel at the same time. So I can hold my sitting bones in my mind's eye, and I can hold my heels in my mind's eye, and I can feel and visualize the line that my heels are drawing from their starting place up to the sitting bones on each side and then back down again. Do that many times. Softly. And then I pause. And then I just choose one side. And I just do one side. Dragging the heel up to the sitting bone. And then pushing it away. Feeling the line I'm drawing on the mat, blanket. I pause after doing that one side. I feel that my hips are quite different. I do the second side, dragging the heel up, pushing it away. Dragging the heel up, pushing it away. Noticing all the time, practicing this kind of dual focus. The focus on the action I'm doing, the heel, the sitting bone, the line between the two, the knee bending. Trying to do it as softly as I can. Varying the speed sometimes so I don't get stuck in a certain rhythm. But also having my kind of global awareness on my whole self so that I can notice I was getting a bit tense in the jaw. I can just soften my jaw. Notice my belly softening. Notice my pelvis rolling a little bit. Notice my shoulder blades on the ground. And I let that second leg go. And I come back to both knees, Heels up and then pushing away. Heels up and then pushing away. And then I come all the way up with my heels towards my sitting bones, and then I roll my feet to standing. So my knees are pointing this to the ceiling and my feet are standing. I just settle my back into the ground here and I see, how do I feel? Ah, nice to have contact with my feet with the floor, really nice contact. And just appreciating the support that the floor gives my back. And I open and close my knees a few times and I see how that feels. And then I just do one side, opening and closing my right knee, just a small movement. Feeling how the movement of the knee relates to the hip, relates to the pelvis, relates to the belly, the back. And then I pause. I feel my pelvis feels really different after just doing one knee. My pelvis on the ground. Then I do the other one. Small movement of opening and closing the second knee. Noticing where I effort, where I could let go. And then opening and closing both. Leaving my feet standing just to rest for a moment. I roll my head again side to side, see how that feels now. No big change. Then I open my knees again, I push my feet away, and just a few times I revisit dragging my heels up with my knees bent and then standing my feet all together. Opening my knees, pushing my feet away, dragging my heels up and standing my feet. Trying to feel where is the sort of sweet point where I drag my heels up and it just makes sense to roll my feet to standing. And the same thing, I open my knees and it just makes sense to start lengthening my legs away. So it becomes one smooth movement rather than broken up movements. And I'm just going to rest with my legs long. And roll my head again. Notice a little scan through my body. Gosh, I'm bent today. Yeah, I roll to my side and I come up to sitting again. And in sitting, my gorgeous patch of sunshine, I'm so lucky to have this window. I come to sitting with my feet together. I don't actually have the whole sole of the foot together, just my heels, but that's just my alignment. So my idea is soles of the feet together, but whatever variation is comfortable. And I slouch back and I hold my hands around my shins just below my knee. And I let my belly out and I push my lower belly forwards and roll it back. Push my lower belly forwards and roll it back. And really the belly is sort of engine for rolling my pelvis. Rolling. As I roll forwards, I feel I want to just separate my sitting bones a bit more again. So kind of preset myself, just grabbing my butt cheeks and pulling them a wider. And then I'm coming back to, I'm actually going to put my hands on my lower belly. So my thumb is below my belly button. My hands are like this. My fingers are pointing down towards my pubic bone. I can feel my pubic bone and I'm rolling my belly forwards and backwards. And I bring my hands to my knees again. I keep my belly coming in and out. And I'm feeling my sitting bones on the ground. I move my legs a bit wider so that I can have a different experience. I can hold onto my ankles and pull to help me get my belly forwards. I'm just letting my head drop so that I go from a rounded back, and I still keep my head dropping. Something really changes in my upper back. As I push my belly forward, my lower back has to arch. I'm holding onto my ankles. And around again. Rounding. So even though I'm moving my pelvis on the floor now, I'm trying to open up across the back of my shoulders. I'm opening up the back of my neck. I'm releasing my jaw. Then I'm going to just not worry about my pelvis. I'm just going to bend my head down and forwards a bit and open my elbows out to the side and come back. So I'm just slowly, like slow-mo, rocking backwards and forwards with my hands like this, holding around my ankles. Just so I can feel the back of my body opening. And I play with my knees being open and closed. My elbows are against my knees. I play with opening and closing my knees in different ways. And I come back to rolling the pelvis backwards and forwards, and I look straight ahead now. So now really different stuff is happening in my chest. As I roll my pelvis backwards and forwards, holding onto my ankles still. And I move my feet into a different position. I feel like I want to pull them in a bit more. Even lift them off the floor. And then I can come forwards with my feet close to me. I'm just going to get into that again. So I roll back and I'm pulling on my ankles all the time. And then to roll my pelvis forwards, I kind of pull on my ankles and let my feet come off the floor. I'm balancing on my sitting bones. And then I tip forward so that my feet come to the floor again. That means I'm in much more of a stretch through my legs. And then I can just go forwards and relax here for a moment. I'm just going to take my arms forwards, and I can use my hands on the floor either to stop myself from overstretching by pushing my hands into the floor a bit, or to add more weight to the stretch by taking my hands forwards. So I play around a little bit with that. I use my hands on the floor to lift a little bit the weight of my upper body, and I take myself over one knee gently and over the other, and I'm just opening up the back of my body in different ways while I also open up my hips. And it's soft. Adjust my feet a little bit. I want them a little bit further away from me, just a centimetre or so. I just adjust them. And then I really tip all the way over onto one leg. So I reach my left arm over to the right, and that tips me over onto my right knee. And I slowly sweep my hands over to the left, and that tips me over onto my left knee. And I'm just feeling the flesh in the back of my waistline open up on either side. Dropping my head down, trying to keep my eyes and jaw and tongue soft. And I can get my head to my knee on one side. I'll stretch through the arm. And my hands are always on the floor to support me. I just use my hands wherever I want to either increase the stretch or support me. Or I can distract myself and engage in other things like, oh, my feet. Just grab my feet a little bit and look at my feet. I've got cold toes. Oh, my lengthen my arms and my fingers. I stretch and open up my chest on one side. What a nice kind of morning opening. I like this, opening up the chest, opening up the side of the body. I found that it's nice to hold my leg here. Moving my ribs, my chest, over to the other side. So I'm leaning on my right elbow and holding my right knee with my hand. And then I'm moving my pelvis a little bit, moving my ribs a little bit, moving my head a little bit, and then opening up, opening all the way up to look with my chest up, to roll my top shoulder back. And I keep just moving my pelvis a little bit. And I reach through my top fingertips. I look to my fingertips, and that helps me open up my chest. I softly come back. I just go side to side a little bit with nice rounded back. I draw my belly right in and then I release it. And I draw my belly in as much as I can and then I release again. And I draw my belly in and then I release again. Now I've got my toes on my forehead. And then I relax. Just going to push my feet away. And slump in sitting for a moment. Any position that's comfortable. And coming up, I'm going to have my legs long. And I'm going to keep slumping forwards. The crown of my head is dropping. The crown of my head is dropping still. And I'm just going to walk forwards with my sitting bones a little bit. And as I do that, I play with letting my belly push out and then pulling my belly in. I can have my hands on the floor to support, so this is quite strong for me through the back because I have not done anything first this morning, so this is my first movement of the day. So I really feel this down my back and down the back of my legs. So I'm pulling my belly in and then I'm pushing my belly out and I try a few times each way and then I'm walking backwards again. I feel my back twisting and opening and twisting and opening. And I go forwards again, walking with my sitting bones, and I shift my weight to walk with my sitting bones, and then gradually I'm just going to come up, come up, come up. Then I lie all the way down. See how it feels to lie down now. Noticing my volume, my shape, my alignment. Stand both my feet. See how that feels. Roll my head. Rolling my head is different now. I'm going to roll to my side and I want to open up my shoulders a bit more. So I'm sitting with my fingertips facing towards, my fingertips are facing in the same direction my feet are facing. And I just play here with bending and lengthening my elbows just a little bit. And already, because I'm really tight in the front of my shoulders today, Already I feel a little bit of a stretch in the front of my shoulders. So many different components to this, so I'm going to lift my chest a little bit and then let my chest sink. So I'm letting my elbows just be passive and responsive. And I'm driving a movement of the chest going up and then sinking down. Going up and then sinking down. And then I shift the focus again to my shoulders rather than my chest, and I just do little circles. Can I circle my shoulders here? I want to go back. I want to circle my shoulders back. And I go one and then the other because it's different. I can get into some different bit of my shoulders if I go one and then the other. And can I circle my shoulders back and leave them back? So can I do a backward circle with the shoulder, but with my shoulders rolled back all the time? And I have to release tension in my neck. And I let that go, and I just come back to lifting the chest and sinking the chest. And the elbows are just responsive. The elbows aren't driving anything, they're just leading, they're just responding, sorry. I change my legs just to make myself comfortable. I let my head go back, that's okay. I'm resting my head on my shoulders. I lift my head up again. I'll just come off my wrists for a moment. I would come back with my fingertips facing forwards again, my elbows bent. And now, I'm going to roll the pelvis. And as I roll the pelvis, I let my belly move, I let my back move. And then my spine moves, my ribs move. I don't worry what my head is doing. Just do what's comfortable. And I feel that as I stick my bottom out, I can open up my chest again. And as I tuck my tailbone underneath, I'm sinking my chest. And I just play with that a bit more. Having my legs wherever I want them to just give me access into my hips. Open up my shoulders, and then I take my feet really wide and I drop my right knee to the ground and open up my left knee and come back, and I drop my left knee in towards the ground and open up my right knee to the right. So both knees go to the left if they can touch the ground, and then both knees go to the right if they can touch the ground. And after doing that a few times, I take my attention and let my pelvis move and roll, and after doing it a few times, I take my attention back to my shoulders, and as my left knee goes in, I roll my left shoulder back. Oh, I need to stay there and get into that. Wow. And then as my right knee goes in, I roll my right shoulder back. And I do it a few more times, adjusting my feet to be comfortable. Taking one knee in and then the other, and then I just come out of it and sit and drop my head and move my arms around with my back rounded, my legs long, and I shuffle around my pelvis, rolling my pelvis side to side, feeling my sitting bones on the ground, letting my knees bend as I shift my weight, and I pick my head up again. And I make some nice big swooping circles with my arms wherever I want. So I'm just sitting with my legs wide And I'm moving my arms and letting my pelvis play a part in how my arms are moving. Can I twist and open and close the chest? What's possible? Where can I get my fingertips? And I come to lie down again. And I stand my feet and I see how I feel. And I roll my head side to side. I notice my contact with the ground. Lengthen my legs again, just want to scan. And then I'm just going to start to move my arms and legs around a little bit and roll softly in whatever way is possible. And I want to just roll to my left and push my right foot into the floor so that I can open up the front of my right hip and then stretch my right arm. And I stay there, pushing my right foot into the floor to use my right glutes a little to open up the front of my right hip. And reach my right arm across my body, up on a high diagonal, and I come back and I just roll a little bit side to side with both my feet on the floor, and then I go the other way, pushing my left foot into the floor to lift my left buttock, to roll and reach my left arm across my body and up, and I push my left foot into the floor to engage the glutes on the left. And I open up the front of the left hip. And I come back and I just do that a few times. I just want to roll and twist any way that I can, just to use the glutes on one side and then use the glutes on the other. Boom. And then I get both feet onto the floor and I push both feet into the floor to lift up the pelvis and use the glutes on both sides, and I lower and push my feet into the floor to lift my pelvis. And I shift my pelvis around, using my pelvis on the floor and my shoulders on the floor. Just playing around with what feels okay for my back, what feels good for my glutes, what feels okay for my knees. A bit of glute work, pushing the pelvis up and lowering. And I just keep varying. And even though I'm kind of doing reps, I'm not pushing to my extreme. I'm playing with different ways of doing it. Sometimes I roll up and down, sometimes I come up in one piece, like a kind of Jane Fonda. Sometimes I really feel my glutes working, and I come up high, I have my knees wide. That feels good. Pushing, I do little pulses, pushing my feet into the floor, getting this real external rotation in my legs while I push my feet up. And I get my feet up in the air, waggle them around just to give them a rest, and then put my feet back down and push up and down, just smaller ones, with my feet more in parallel. Small, easy glutes. Glutes, glutes, glutes. Those are butt muscles, by the way, glutes. Lifting and then staying up again, doing little pulses, pushing my feet into the floor. Hello, glutes, 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 glutes. I bounce my pelvis around a little bit. I've got this supported center, pushing my pubic bone up towards the ceiling. And I open up my shoulders and waggle my shoulders around on the ground as I move my pelvis. I'm really burning in the glutes now. Belly out. Belly in. Ooh, it's harder with the belly in. And then I lower it down and I lengthen my legs. And then I give them a waggle and I roll on my back. And I just come into a little bit of a glute stretch on one side, crossing one ankle over the other thigh, playing around there. Just opening up the muscles I just used. Rolling and playing with the glute stretch. Opening up the side of the hip as well. Any way that feels good. Crossing over to do the other side. Ankle over the thigh. That ankle stays flexed, the ankle that's crossed over. And then I just move around into my glute stretch, hugging the legs in. Softly, softly. Even though I'm moving with more speed, I'm not at my end of range, so it's really soft. I'm not pushing into extreme stretches, but I'm feeling all the muscles I just used, opening out and lengthening. And I take my leg away, anywhere I want. Where does it want to go? Where does it feel a nice opening, a nice stretch? And then I come back to having my feet on the floor and I just play with how my feet pushing into the floor helps me move my pelvis in different ways, and I let my belly and my chest and my spine be responsive to my feet pushing into the floor and lifting my pelvis and opening up the front of my body. And I just do a little bit of a stretch through the back of the legs, taking my legs up very softly, just playing around with where my legs go, slightly bigger, stretching, still not in my end of range, but just pushing, pointing and flexing, getting some life into my legs, anywhere they want to go. Long, long, long. And then last time, feet on the floor. I come up into some curl ups, so shorten the front of my body. Feet pushing into the floor gives me the support to lift my pelvis. I try to keep my jaw soft, push my pubic bone up, feel my whole surface of the foot spreading out into the ground. And I'm going to bring my hands behind my head already, so that when I lower my pelvis, I come straight into some curl-ups. I lower my pelvis, my head comes up, my knees come off, and then I come into a crunch. Little crunch, little crunch, and crunch, and crunch. Just a few more. Crunching. I'm going to stop any second. Knees over my elbows, over my knees rather. Scooping in my belly, lifting both my tailbone and the crown of my head, just making myself as short in the front of my body as I can, into a tiny little ball. That's what I call the wood louse. Staying in a wood louse. And then a little faster, smaller, staying at the end of my range. Tiny little pulses into the wood louse, boom, 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 and then I'm going to let my head come down, my arms come down, my feet come down, and push my pelvis up. Boom. Opening up everything I just used. Opening up, pushing my hands into the ground. I've got a bigger range with less effort. And I come down and I lengthen my legs and I see how I feel. Scanning my body. I feel I've overworked slightly in my neck. Oops, sometimes happens. Roll side to side. Oh, having said that, my neck is rolling so much better. So there we go, paradox. Soft jaw, soft eyes. I feel the rest of my body in a smoother contact with the ground, spread out. Nice, I roll to my side. And I just come to standing. Just to finish with a little scan in standing, seeing how I feel. A bit taller, a bit more alive. Also a bit more needing a wee, to be honest. Sometimes that happens too. Have a little bounce. Feel nice and grounded through my feet. Good even contact. Still feel the difference between my right and left side, but more available. Just bounce and move my pelvis around, just feeling movement in my hips. And trying to be, can I be aware of my sitting bones and my heels in standing, my sitting bones and my heels. Like I was when I was lying on the ground. The awareness of my sitting bones and my heels and the connection, the line between them, it's a line of force. And I just lift up my arms a few times, thinking about my heels and my sitting bones, and then I reach, feeling a nice long reach. My back is really open, and that's nice. I could do a handstand class now. I just let it go. Have a little bit more of a bounce. Softly, softly, softly move through the ribs. Softly get a bit of movement into my fingers and toes. And then take it for a walk. That's it. Thank you so much. Please share on Instagram and all sorts of things like that. Tell people who you think might benefit. It's different day to day. You can go once